What's up, Vikings fans? This is Chris Corso here with the Minnesota Vikings Podcast. We are bringing in some quality guests, I have to say. Gary Kubiak joined us to talk Vikings offense. Kyle Brandt talks about his best friend, Kirk Cousins, last week. Now we were thinking, who's an LSU guy to talk Justin Jefferson? And we looked no further than Hobie Artigue from Fox 9, who is a Louisiana native and pretty much followed the LSU Tigers throughout their national championship run. So we knew that you were the perfect person, and I see that LSU helmet in your background there. So
it's back there.
You're ready to go.
Kind of guess so, but you know what? You set the stage. I mean, Kubiak, Brandt, Artigue, I don't know about that.
I put you right in that category. I mean, Vikings fans are obviously familiar with your work. You work for Fox 9, the partner of the Minnesota Vikings, host of Vikings Game Day Live, host of Vikings Live on Thursday nights throughout the season. And obviously you do a lot of covering of the Minnesota Gophers with the PJ Fleck Show. So when the Vikings drafted an LSU player in the first round with the number 22 overall pick, did you just say, these are my two worlds coming together?
It was kind of like the two worlds colliding, Chris. You look at it, and also I didn't think that Justin Jefferson was actually going to be there for the Vikings to take, because you see some of the names starting to fall off the board. And like a lot of people, the Eagles are sitting right there, and I was like, okay, that's where he's going to go. Yet, lo and behold, he falls to the Vikings. And I think that he's a great fit from what he was able to do at LSU. You look back at the 2018 season, he really started to ramp things up. And then in 2019, he just took off. And now I think he's ready to bring what he has to offer to the NFL.
So I want to touch on that because I'm happy you brought that up. His first season with the team, he had 0 catches, and he really built it up in 2018, had a monster season. Really being trusted with the offense by Coach O over there. And then last year, we all know he led the nation in like multiple categories. Also had those, 18 touchdowns and led the team to a national championship. So what was it that really stuck out from 2018 to 2019? The growth that he had stats-wise, it's incredible.
I think also, Chris, you look at what he was able to do in LSU's bowl game from the 2018 season. That was the Fiesta Bowl that LSU played against UCF. And that was kind of the game where Joe Burrow started to become Joe Burrow. But also you saw Jefferson take a leap as well. He had 3 touchdowns in that game. And I think that really set the stage for what he was able to do in 2019. Of course, he has a Heisman-winning quarterback. He has a Biletnikoff winner on the other side of him in Jamar Chase. But Jefferson was really able to emerge as his own player. Plus, he was kind of in the shadows of his brother in his times at LSU. Whenever you look at his first 2 seasons, his brother Jordan was a quarterback for LSU. He brought them to the national championship game against Alabama back in 2012. And his other brother, Ricky, he was a safety for the LSU Tigers. So he was always just waiting to emerge. But I think at the end of the 2018 season, also that game against Texas in 2019 that LSU played in Austin, I think that's really where you saw him start to emerge, and that just really was the launch pad, if you will, for what was an incredible 2019 season. That's brought him to the NFL.
Yeah, I see that Jefferson name. You see it like everywhere at LSU. It was on jerseys for so long because a lot of people don't know that his 2 older brothers were there. He credits a lot of his success to being able to learn from his 2 brothers.
Yeah, I actually talked to him in a one-on-one just a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, I said, people described him as a tough player because you watch the way he plays. He goes across the middle. He's not scared to get hit. But you look at the way he plays, and I asked him, I said, where did that toughness come from? And he said, well, that's something that was instilled in me by my older brothers. I was always the youngest one. I was always the one getting picked on. So whenever we play football and I start crying a little bit, they were the ones who really got on me and helped me propel my game to that level. Of course, being with great college coaches does that. But I think that his 2 brothers really helped him excel from day one whenever he got on board at LSU.
So I watched that interview that you did with him, and the thing that stuck out to me most was when he said, yeah, when I get back at practice, you asked him about going against Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, and he said, I'm going to go right at them. I was
kind of surprised he said that.
I mean,
rookie to say that?
What was your takeaway when you heard that?
My jaw literally dropped because I'm like, he is really trash talking two Pro Bowl caliber linebackers who have been Pro Bowl level players year in and year out. We'll see if that tune changes whenever he gets on the field, though, whatever that does happen. But I think you have to like that type of confidence whenever you're talking about a rookie coming into a situation where he's really going to have to be a huge part to this offense with Stephon Diggs' departure. You look at that, and yeah, it comes across as really confident, but also that can be a good thing too whenever you see a guy who hasn't even played a down yet in the NFL come in with that level of moxie. That's something, if I'm a coach, I like to hear that type of stuff.
Yeah, and we know Gary Kubiak's excited, as we mentioned earlier. I mean, he was the guy who put his foot out and said, let's pick this guy, Coach Tim. Mm-hmm. One thing that stood out to me was, I think it was like all but 3 of his catches came out of the slot last year for LSU. Do you think he'll be able to take that talent in the slot and do it on the outside as well? Because a lot of the Vikings coaches believe he can do both.
Well, we kind of touched on that in the interview that he and I did, and I asked him that question. I said, so many people want to just say you're a slot receiver. That's where you are. That's where you did your best work in college. And he said, well, I actually was an outside receiver before I got to LSU, and I just kind of found a role in that. So I think if he can translate what he knows and the success that he had in the slot and bring it to a place where it really was his natural position outside to start off his football career, I think if he can marry the two together, I think he'll definitely be in good hands with the coaching staff with the Vikings. But it will be interesting to see how he can mix those two worlds, the success he had in the slot, but also translating that to his natural position outside.
So since you spent so much time watching these games in college, I'm going to say my favorite Justin Jefferson game was the game before the national championship when he had 4 touchdowns in the first half against the Oklahoma Sooners. What is your favorite moment watching Justin Jefferson as a diehard LSU fan?
I think that game is number 1 on the list of any LSU fan because what he did in that game was just incredible. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care which college team you're playing. I actually looked it up. Oklahoma, I believe, gave up around 2 passing touchdowns a game last season. A game. He had 4 in the first half. In the first half, it was just incredible to see the way he was able to play and really fuel LSU's offense from the get-go in the biggest game of the season up to that point, arguably the biggest game the team had in almost a decade to that point. But also, you mentioned the Oklahoma game, and I'll go back a little bit further to the beginning of the season. The moment I knew that Justin Jefferson could be a star for LSU and potentially a star in the NFL was the game that LSU played against Texas. That was a game where it was just really back and forth the entire time.
In the season.
Yeah. I mean that was the first big test of the season. And the way he was able to just find space or create space given a small window, that's where I really started to notice, okay, the kid wearing number 2 is going to be someone to watch. He had 3 touchdowns in that game, including one to seal it toward the end. And that was a play. If you could watch his 3rd touchdown that he scored in that game against Texas, he catches it in a very, very tight window, but then turns it upfield, and you can really see his speed at work. And I think that play right there was just an all-encompassing play of what Justin Jefferson is going to be bringing to this Vikings team. Not to mention, he had some very tough catches in that game. He grabbed it, and they get popped right away. Yet he still was able to hang on to the ball, fight for extra yardage, and get as much as he could. I think that was potentially, aside from that Oklahoma game, his best game as an LSU Tiger.
I love that you brought one up like before the end of the season, so you can kind of see the evolving superstar that he became in his college career. But the last question on Jefferson, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Give us his stats for the upcoming season. I want a projection from you. You're a little biased, which I love, but I'm gonna ask you what's your projection for 2020?
A lot's going to be expected of him. And I kind of touched on that with him. I said, you know what? People are going to be expecting a lot of you, and you really haven't had expectations of this magnitude before because you kind of flew under the radar in high school. You flew under the radar in college. Now you're getting to a place where all eyes are on you. But the way he's approaching this, I think he's going to approach it as a pro because he knows the work that he's had to put in to get to this point. But if we're talking a statistical analysis, 700-yard season, respectable.
I like that. That's
6 touchdowns because it might also be an offense I mean, Irv Smith Jr., you can expect him to potentially have a bigger role. Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen. There are options of where Kirk Cousins can go with the football, not to mention Dalvin Cook coming out of the backfield. But I think a respectable number is somewhere in that area.
Awesome. Well, we thank you, Hobie Artigue. I mean, you are our local LSU resident that we're going to turn to for all things Justin Jefferson going forward.
I'll try to be, man. I'll try to be anytime, Chris. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man.